Welcome, coffee enthusiasts, career aficionados, to another enriching episode of Coffee with Convery. Today, we have a special guest, Mike Thomson, who not only is redefining the hiring landscape, but has a unique journey that intertwines between entrepreneurship, athletics, and the invaluable lessons learned from embracing discomfort. From the hockey rinks teaching teamwork and resilience to his competitive floors of CrossFit, Mike has always sought to confront and embrace discomfort willingly. His journey as an entrepreneur, however, unveiled a profound realization that success isn't just about innovation and business acumen, it's also a continuing process of facing and navigating uncomfortable situations. Mike's the force behind Spark Recruiting, a company dedicated to revolutionizing the hiring process with a humanizing twist. If you've ever struggled with crafting job descriptions that truly resonate with your ideal candidates, or maybe you even found yourself losing potential hires in the final stages of the hiring process, Mike is here to shed some light on how to turn this tide. Now, let's delve into our conversation with Mike and keep in mind that the path to success is paved with moments of discomfort, challenges, and internal growth. Mike, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. I've only had a couple cups of coffee, so I'm not fully caffeinated yet, but I'm ready.
All right, all right. Well, we'll warm up first with a few rapid fire questions, and then we'll go into your journey and you can share with our audience a little bit more about where you've been and where you're going. So first of all, what are your pronouns?
He, him.
Awesome. And what is your superpower?
Ooh, superpower. I would say, man, I wish I had a good answer for this. My superpower would be my optimism.
Optimism. That's a good one. That's a good one. So this other question is an interesting one. And I always think there's things that senses and different things that intrigue us. So what is your favorite smell?
Favorite smell
Yep.
is, well, aside from my better half, Kelly, I would say the smell of freshly baked chocolate chip cookies.
Uh, yeah,
Nothing better. Nothing
absolutely.
better.
Nothing better. My mouth is watering just thinking about it.
Wait,
Um,
should I have said coffee instead? Was that a layup for this
no, no,
podcast?
no,
Or
no,
should
no.
I have said, I'm changing it. It's coffee. The answer is coffee. I'm on
No,
a
no, no.
coffee
We're sticking
podcast.
with chocolate chips. I chocolate chip cookies is great. They go well with coffee. If you think about this next question, I wondered what if you could share what is the best compliment you've ever received?
Best comment I've ever received. There are two that come to mind. The first, and maybe we could edit this out of the podcast. I was getting a coffee actually through Tim Hortons drive-through in high school with my mom, and there was a lady that was giving us our coffees when she got there, and she was probably a little older than my mom's age, and she looked at me and she says, "My God, you have bedroom eyes." And I did not know what that meant. And it stuck with me. I think I was 16 at the time, and I still hold that as a badge of honor. Like that jumps out, but maybe not appropriate for this. I would say the other,
No, it's totally
yeah.
fine for this.
All
I
right,
think,
I'm
yeah,
gonna leave it there. I'm gonna leave it there with bedroom eyes, and from a Tim Hortons drive-through when I was 16.
okay, because I know I've said you got great hair, so that's another one I think that would be but we'll go with that one. That's fine. I love that. This is why I think this is so fun, these rapid fire questions. So we also have guilty pleasures, things we like to snack on. What is your favorite go-to snack?
Right now, my snack, and this is unoriginal, is cookie dough. Like I can't, now that they've made it edible, which it
Yeah.
always was, but now for some reason on the package it says you can eat it. Like we were waiting for them to say we could eat it before we were actually eating it. That's my snack right now.
Isn't that true? Like I always thought like, oh, because it's not cooked, the egg, you'll get salmonella or whatever. But I don't know, was that a myth or whatever? But now it's
Yeah.
on the
Now
packaging.
on
But
now on the package is like you can eat this. It's like, yeah,
yeah.
I've been doing it for a while, but thanks, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Looking back at school, what was your favorite subject in school?
I did an entrepreneurship class both in high school and at university, and those ones were definitely my favorite standout for sure.
Awesome. So we all start somewhere. Thinking back, some people share their first like kind of work job, but we've also know people do babysitting and lawn mowing and whatever that is. But what was your very first job?
My first job, I played hockey growing up my entire life, and my first job was actually uh, a, a counselor, an instructor at a goalie school. I played hockey. I was a goalie, and when I was 14, I was a instructor at a goalie school, and I did that for probably 10 years in the summers.
Okay. Okay. Um, Describe yourself in one word.
Fun.
Fun.
That cheesy?
No, I love it.
Uh,
I would say fun.
I wanted to react. I didn't want to think. I just wanted
No,
to
no,
react.
fun is good. I love the reaction. Okay, so let's journey back to the roots of your story. Could you share with us your upbringing, the place you called home, and offer some insights into your values, your passions, interests that have shaped you to the fun person you are today?
Oh, um, taking me back. So I grew up in Barrie, Ontario, about an hour north of Toronto. And I was a middle child. I have a younger sister and an older brother. My brother was a year older. My sister is 2 years younger. So we are all pretty close in age. My dad was a salesman for Hershey Canada, the chocolate reference.
Yep.
And then he started his own business as a sales broker. So I saw him transition into entrepreneurship as a kid. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And they, as I look back, and I think as you get older, you always reflect back on how you came to be who you are and how you are. And you always look at your parents, you look at your upbringing in terms of where it was. And the
Mhm.
best way I can articulate my values and where they came from is my dad taught me to dream as big as possible, taught me that nothing was out of reach, anything was possible. You could do, and you're deserving of doing anything. You just have to work really, really hard to get there. And my mom taught me the value of relationships and loyalty. My mom, to a fault, will always think that I am doing no wrong, and anything bad that happens to me is everybody else's fault and not mine of my own. And I love my mom for that to a fault, but I learned those lessons from my parents is the value of really loving and caring for people in your circle, and my dad's ability to dream big and put a dent in the universe because you can do it, because if anybody can do it, why not you?
That's amazing. That's amazing. And it's so interesting that it's true, bringing, your upbringing, the family we were born into, the parents we have, it's such a influential part of who we are. And it sounds like you had some great role models there to help you get established and get going. If we reflect on your time at Wilfrid Laurier University, you earned your Bachelor of Business Administration. And thinking about some of the audience here who might be in school or thinking of going to school, what specific lessons or experiences from university did you find most valuable for yourself and your career?
I think like in the moment it's hard, and like it's always easy when I reflect back on the lessons, the things I did that are valuable to me now in the seat I'm in. But if I was to reflect back being at university and being that, I went to school late. So I graduated from high school. I played hockey for a couple of years. So I was a mature student getting into my first year. So I was older, not more mature, I was older. But I think I was lost. I didn't know. I knew I wanted to be successful. I knew I wanted to have a great life. I knew I was ambitious, and a little bit entitled in the sense where it's like I was part of, I was smart. I got good grades out of high school, so I was thrown into this mix of also smart students, and felt like I was ready to accomplish things. Like I really did.
Mhm.
And looking back, I had no idea, and I think that's okay. I think trying to figure it out is part of the journey. And, it's easy for me to look back and say, like, it's going to be fine. You're going to figure it out. But in the moment, you're scared. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And, I was competing against people that appeared like they had a strong grasp on what they wanted to do, and the pressures for extracurriculars and who's got this co-op or who's got this summer internship, and just feeling inadequate because I didn't have those things. Like always thinking I needed to continue to push to just stay ahead of the race was, when I look back, it was exhausting. But in the
Mm,
moment, I didn't really think so. I think I don't know if I answered your question, but I was just
Yeah.
trying to paint the picture of where I was in terms of trying to find myself in in that pivotal time.
I thank you, and I think the your response is great, because I think the things we hear today from people going through that same part of their journey, there is a lot of, I hear people saying, comparison to others, and I know social media does that as well for all of us, and for the younger generation. And I always say, like, you got to look at your own self, not what everyone else is doing, and define your own success. But it shows that this is a theme too, that people sometimes go through and self-doubt or don't think you have that co-op, whatever, but things tend to work out, right?
I think so. I believe that, and I think you know, even sitting here today to say that like I'm not affected by social media platforms, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Instagram, whatever it is. Of course, I am. Everybody is, right? Like you're always wanting to know, like that you're doing well, and that external recognition is the fuel that helps us feel like we're achieving what we need to. It's really, really hard, and I think it's easy to say like it needs to come from within. You need to know yourself that you're doing that. And that sounds great. That is really, really hard. And nobody does that perfectly. We're all trying to block out the noise the best we can and find that inner drive and inner satisfaction of what we do. But like people listening, it's not easy. Like
No.
I have doubt a lot of the time. Every day that I post, and I post a lot on LinkedIn, it's like, I'm always like, are people gonna like this? Like, do I, you have this doubt when it's like, Mike, shut up. Nobody wants to hear from you today. Like, stop doing this. So like it's there constantly. And I think it's okay, it's normal. And the balance in managing that is just like that's gonna continue for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's the world we live in. Thinking back about your background as an athlete, particularly in hockey and CrossFit, how has that contributed to your own development of your skills and the skills that are valuable for you in business and as an entrepreneur?
I really I like this question. I'm proud of being an athlete. I consider myself to still be. I played hockey all my life, and now I compete in CrossFit. And I think the athletic journey is it set a foundation for me for entrepreneurship and business, because when you're in sport, practice is a big part of of excelling and being good. And when you practice the fundamentals. Like what you need to work on, and you have to do the same thing over and over and over and over again. There's no secret, there's no fast track, there's no shortcut to that. It's practice. It's the day in, day out, monotonous. Some people call it a grind or practice, whatever it is. That's business. That's entrepreneurship. Like
Mm,
my business now, when you boil it down, I run a recruiting agency. It's go and get clients.
yeah,
How do you get clients? You have to go and talk to people that it's uncomfortable to go and do every day. The more people you talk to and start a relationship with, the more likely you're going to have success. It goes back to that athlete journey where it's like, the answer. You want somebody to tell you the shortcut or the easy way of doing it, but deep down, the basic things you need to do just over and over and over again to achieve that level of success.
absolutely. Absolutely. Great insights and lessons there for the listeners. On that same theme, I know there's a lot of entrepreneurial spirited listeners, people looking to maybe start their own business. And I know that's like a lot to answer this question, so maybe just a few tips, but what advice like would you have for someone who might be listening and wanting to start their own business?
I always like thinking about starting a business as to like and I was never a great student when it came to science, but I go back to the scientific experiment, like the procedure. And I'm probably butchering this for people that are way better at science, but like to have a hypothesis, to test it over and over and to iterate. So the entrepreneurial journey is, in theory, everything works. Everything works in theory or in hindsight. But if you have an insight of like, I wonder if this could work, test it. Go and try it. Put something in action and see how it works. Get the feedback and then make changes on the fly. I think a lot of times we could think about perfecting an idea, perfecting a service offering, perfecting this before we actually put anything in action and practice. And I would flip that on its head. Is like, have an insight and try it,
Yeah.
do it, and then make changes on the fly. But don't be afraid if it's not perfect. It's okay. That's part of it. Like it's the iterative process of experimentation and changing things on the fly and not being married to an idea, but thinking about something and thinking like, oh, this may be, then let's try it and see, and then just kind of listening to the market and making adjustments on the fly.
That that makes total sense and great advice there as well. So you've talked a little bit here, and I asked the question before or mentioned your embracing discomfort. So embracing discomfort in athletics and in entrepreneurship has something you've, kind of dealt with or pride yourself on being able to navigate, as uncomfortable as it could be. How has your ability to confront and navigate these situations also impacted your decision making and your problem solving in business?
Oh, that's a good question. I think like my jump off point for facing discomfort came from seeking some help over my fear of flying. And I was not a great flyer for a lot of my life, and I wanted to get over it because it was holding me back to do stuff. So I actually sought some professional help to get over that. And as part of that, really unpacking anxiety and what it is, and all these things, it was a push to, in order to manage angst, anxious moments, it's the ability to move towards discomfort instead
Hmm.
of our natural reaction is to move away from it. Like something's uncomfortable, we want to seek comfort and we run away. And what happens is we never build that tolerance to manage our anxiety, because as soon as we experience it, we run the other way from it. So going through that process really helped me unpack what discomfort was, what anxiety was, and that even better, I can manage it. You can't remove it, but you can manage it. And how do you manage something? Is you get better at tolerating it through exposure. So I felt the more I could put myself in moments of discomfort, I am going to be better at managing those situations when they occur. If I always run away from a situation, discomfort and anxiety, anxious situations are always going to come up in our life. But if we never train ourselves to manage those and face them, then we're never going to be giving ourselves the opportunity to excel in them. So the fear of flying started there. And now when I think about business, there is lots of decisions that come up that immediately I get anxious. You start thinking, your mind starts going. It's like, we're going to lose all our money. We're going to go bankrupt. The business is going to go under. All my friends are going to think that I'm not successful. My family's going to look at me differently. All these thoughts go in your head, and it creates this bigger like ball of anxiety. And rather than running away from facing that, I have a conscious decision is like, stand there, move
Hmm.
towards it, and face that discomfort. And I use other elements outside of decision making to strengthen that. A lot of people like cold plunge or cold showering just to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation and get used to just standing there and being okay with that. CrossFit to me is an outlet where, we push ourselves, from a fitness perspective into very uncomfortable situations. And
Hmm.
through repeated exposure of that, I like that because that sets me up for life. I know something's going to be uncomfortable. I'm choosing to be uncomfortable because I know I can handle it, and that's going to set me up better for life.
Amazing. Love that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Fear
Um,
of flying.
Fear of flying. That's interesting. I learned something new. That's what's great about this podcast as you dive into it and hear these examples. It's relatable and yet so personal to your experience. And I think that's what's great about sharing these thoughts. So thank you for that. Let's jump into the world of recruiting. From your experience, you're in recruiting, you have your own agency. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the next question. But so when you look at what standout qualities or strategies do you believe candidates should employ to maybe capture the attention of employers in this competitive job market? Any tips or tricks or ideas that you can think that a candidate might be able to try to do and capture that attention?
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot, especially as the market we're in now. There's all these stories about having to apply to 1,000 jobs to get interviews or just not hearing back in the application process. And what a lot of candidates are focusing on is their resume. So if I can write the perfect resume, that's going to do it for me. And what I tell people to say is, like, when was the last time you saw an amazing website and bought something from it? When was the last time? Like, tell me about a website you saw and searched for and went and bought something. You didn't. The website is your resume. It's not the thing that's going to get people to buy. You have to drive them to that website. So what are you doing to drive people to take a look at your website or your resume? That is the secret sauce. Every single candidate that's writing a resume is unique. And I truly believe this in recruiting. Every single person is unique. The problem with resume writing and application is we box ourselves in to being like somebody, and you lose your own uniqueness. Where if you're a candidate, and I tell this to every single person, if you can tap into truly what makes you unique, you will have no competition. But it requires you to really understand this, because nobody's lived your life. Nobody has seen the world through your eyes, through your experience. I just told you about my upbringing, my parents, the story about my fear of flying. Nobody has that exact story. That is my story. That is my uniqueifier. What is yours? What are you tapping into that makes you unique, and owning that? Whatever that may be, not in title is, I went to school here, I'm a part of this club. Those are things you do, not who you are. And I really challenge employee or candidates when they're going through this is, like, who are you?
Yeah.
What is your story? And what are you doing to drive people to your website or your resume?
I love that, and so much insight there that I hope the listeners are taking notes on, because we focus so much on what we do, not who we are. And I've said that for years myself. And sometimes when you do it, back to being the discomfort or uncomfortable, then you have to actually look at yourself and what is unique about you, right? And what are you doing? Because we're not robots, and we want to hire
No.
people that have emotional intelligence and other things. So yeah, great advice.
And I don't know if you've ever heard it, and I'll shout out to
Sure.
Chris Do. I don't know if you've ever read or heard anything. He's a personal branding, like, guru, and, like, he has a quote that I find summarizes this beautifully. It says, corporations are becoming more like people. Companies want to be people, but people are trying to be more like companies right now. And if you think about the application process, what we're trying to do is we're trying to appear like a business. Whereas if you look at brands, what are they trying to do? They're trying to be more relatable to an individual. So, like, that is a problem. And he has a lot of great resources out there for really tapping into. People call it a personal brand. I call it what's unique about you. But he has some really great advice. If you don't know where to start, he's got some great stuff on YouTube that give you at least a starting point to tap into, who am I? What makes me unique, and how am I different? And he's great. He's awesome. A lot of comic book references and things that way, but, like, it's very consumable. And, like, remove personal branding, because I feel like that's a business term. And, like, how are you unique and what's you? And Chris Do is amazing at that.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I hope
No
I'm going
problem.
to take a look as well. So let's hope our audience does too. So let's talk about Spark Recruiting, um, and how it came to be. What actually motivated you to establish a company focusing on what I love you saying, humanizing the hiring process?
Yeah, I've been in recruitment for 15 years, which goes to show you how old I am, but right out of school. And it's a tough market. Mostly it's in tech recruiting that I do. I've had my experience in, and it's commoditized, and it's, you go through the motions and you do it. And through my experience, even industry peers, nobody likes the industry that they're in from an agency recruiting side. Like, it's just a numbers game. It's, a role comes out, you submit resumes, and you hope to get lucky and hit. And I had a lot of success in recruitment agency recruiting, because when I was hiring for somebody, I wasn't hiring for, a company. I wasn't hiring for, TD Bank or RBC or any big bank. I was recruiting for Brian, and Brian happens to work at TD Bank. And that message was hitting as I was selling people and, like, marketing roles. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to scale that. I thought, why am I being responsible for telling Brian's story to the market when I can just create an avenue and content for Brian to tell his story? And I can use that to go and authentically recruit on his behalf. So Spark came out of this process that we were already doing as sales individuals for representing the individual behind the job. And what we've done is, because we want to have more fun with content, is we want to create content around that. We want to make it more authentic versus me telling candidates about Brian. Let's let Brian tell his own story about the leader he is, what his team's like, what the role is like picturing like you're just having a coffee with him, learning about the role versus the successful candidate required needs to have 10 plus years experience in this sort of like that is not real life. That is not how you start a relationship with somebody. Imagine a Tinder profile that had it listed like a job description. It just doesn't work. It's not how
No.
relationships are formed or built. So my mission is to, I'm eliminating the job description, or at least vast changing it through video content is how I see the future.
It's so insightful and so like real. Like that's exactly what people are looking for. I mean, just looking at the job market and looking at the jobs and the descriptions and then the resume and that whole process just feels so artificial, and just not real. And so I really love what you're doing at Spark Recruiting. And for our listeners here too, if you want to check out their website and what Mike and his team is doing, he's done some great stuff, and especially following him on LinkedIn with all his videos are really engaging and sharing jobs in a way that might spark your interest. No pun
I like
intended.
I like a you spark. And I'd like to ask you, because the conversation is like, when you think about resumes and job descriptions, you see so many of them. When was the last time you read one front to back, like fully read, or do you scan it?
You you truly don't. And I get asked this question a lot because I've worked at big enterprises and some medium size as well. But generally speaking, recruiters have like 6 seconds, right, to look at it. And what on there do they look at? And if you have thousands, you're just glazing over as well. So the answer is not all off. I don't think resumes is the way to discover someone anyways. I think it's really through the whole relationships you build and how you go about presenting yourself um, in the public eye, what really makes a difference. But yeah,
I think
uh,
there's so much more, like there's so many more avenues now to show depth of people beyond a resume,
yes,
right? Like even if you look at a LinkedIn profile, that is a way better opportunity to share who you are, what you think
yep,
about things, how you do stuff. You can't do that. A resume tells me where you went to school, what companies you worked for, and the titles you've had. The rest of it, honestly, I know you're exaggerating and fluffing the what you've done. Everybody knows that. There's the distrust in like writing the points, but like what it is it validates what you've done and where you went to school, which is great. And I think those things are important. But I want to know more. And I think people are deserving of more than that. And LinkedIn is an extension of that. That just doesn't get utilized. They think it's just another place for their resume. It's not. It's a social media page. It's like your ability to put your
that's
personality
right.
and showcase who you are out there. And it doesn't have to mean that you post every day video sharing things. You can comment on things. You can
That's right.
engage in conversations with people to share what you think about things, whatever they may be. But it's such an opportunity for people, this networking, thing that everyone talks about. It's easy to network because you can just start conversations where you feel comfortable. And I don't think it fully gets utilized in that point, but it's important. And I think it's helpful for candidates is, I always like to think motion creates emotion. Just get out there and start doing some stuff, and it's going to create you to think and find avenues and angles of stuff you want to do. So jump into some conversations.
That's right.
LinkedIn is the giant cocktail party where everybody's talking.
That's
You
right.
don't even, you can just jump into a conversation and insert yourself. That is LinkedIn. It is the biggest cocktail party you've ever walked into, but you don't have to get one person's attention. You can just go and jump into conversations.
Wow, that's amazing because that is such a great takeaway. Because I do think a lot of people think of, I remember when LinkedIn got started, people were like, oh, why would I want to do that? I have a resume. And it's like, well, that you just highlighted why you would. And I use it as a news feed every day. So I really think for the listeners, if you're trying to stand out, you're trying to find out what's going on, maybe, yeah, Instagram's good for scrolling and doom scrolling and whatever, but jump on LinkedIn and see what people are talking about and get engaged. Um, one of the other questions I want to ask you is about considering the candidate experience in the hiring process. This is one of the biggest things right now that I'm hearing from people, that it's not all that great if you're the
Mm.
candidate. People get ghosted, people apply and get rejected within seconds, all these other things. But how does Spark Recruiting prioritize creating a positive and more memorable experience for candidates?
what what we're doing and what we want to see is the what we call humanizing hiring. So like I said before, my belief is people are more than the resume, and the way the job description, the way the hiring process sits today doesn't set anybody up for success. You have a generic job description, and then if I'm reading a job description, because I read a lot of them, scan them, don't read them, but like if I needed to write a resume to respond to that, I don't even know where to begin. There's 15 different skills that they're looking for. I don't know which ones are actually important versus which ones are filler. So you're trying to decipher the Da Vinci Code and write a resume that matches a job description that you don't really know. So it's very difficult. So what we're doing is we're changing the job description to a conversation in terms of let's learn about the role from the hiring manager, what's important, all these things. And then on the back end, when candidates are interested and the ones that we shortlist, we allow them the opportunity to speak back in a video application. So as part of our process, the hiring manager gets to pick the 3, 4 things that are really important about the role, the things that really matter. Because if you talk to any hiring manager now, there's usually 2 to 3, maybe 4 things that really matter in terms of what they're looking for. And we give candidates the opportunity in a video format to speak back to those things directly to the hiring manager. So if we think about it, some people call it a video cover letter, some people call it a candidate video application, but we really want to give them the answers, because why is it a guessing game? Like if I'm
Right.
hiring, I'm going to tell people like, hey, these are the 3 things I really care about. Yeah, if you want to read about it, here's all the T's and C's of whatever it is. But these are the 3 things, and I want to hear from you. Tell me these three
Yeah,
things.
that's
What's your
great.
story? Like, where can you do that? So we're breaking that down. So we have our video commercial, and then we have our candidate video application as our 2 leading products right now.
Amazing, amazing opportunity that you've created for both sides of that coin to step into a new way to discover. So, yeah, no, I love it. I just need so much more of that. We need more mics in the world. Um, as you've navigated your entrepreneurial journey, big thing I get asked a lot about, and a lot of our listeners ask me, is about mentorship and networking. And I just wanted to see if you could share maybe me a significant mentor or source of inspiration for you. And what qualities, attributes do you believe one should look for in a mentor?
It's a great question. I've been lucky. I've worked for some great bosses in my career that have shaped me in the recruiting side of it. Some of them have imparted some great sales skills. Some of them have imparted some good entrepreneurship skills. I'm always on the lookout for coaching, and maybe just the athlete in me. So I always have coaches. I hired a personal branding coach. I've hired multiple sales coaches. I hire a performance psychologist. I have a fitness coach. So I'm always on the lookout for individuals that will teach me something and hold me accountable. And I think that's the biggest thing is it's less about my on the job, like, hey, what can I do to grow Spark as an entrepreneur? And that's on the nose, is like that's what you need a coach to build a business, right? But what skills do I think I need in the moment to get to that next level of development for myself? And that's what I unpack is like, what I'm having a blockage right now is, top of funnel activities from a sales perspective. That's something that's really a challenge for me. I need a coach. I need someone that can help me with this specific skill. So I go and seek that out and get that coach for that period of time to teach me that. And the thing that's good about that is I'm owning my professional development. I'm not waiting for somebody to tell me X, Y, and Z. I'm looking at it in terms of like what am I missing and what skill do I think I need to advance, and then I go and get it. I did, like, when I was getting in front of the camera and felt weird, I hired a coach that was an ex TV news anchor to help me feel more comfortable in front of the camera. That was a skill. I know I like, hey, I'm going to be on film a lot more on LinkedIn. I need a coach. I
Yeah.
need somebody to help me with that skill set. And the thing about LinkedIn and where we are now is there are tons of options for people to go and get coaching, go and get mentorship. And it doesn't even have to be formal mentorship. You can just follow people and get it for free, which if you're a student looking at this, like I mentioned, Chris Doe from Personal Branding, that's free and that's valuable information. You know, there are so many individuals that you could follow and learn from and model after that you don't need their time one-on-one. You can just learn from them. So it's a really cool opportunity to pick a skill, geek out on it. And there's a lot of resources online to nerd out.
I love that because you highlighted the fact that you go to different people for different things. And I think that's a super great takeaway for the listeners too, because it's rare and well, you'll never find everything in one person, right? We all have our own back to uniqueness, right? And I think that I'm glad you shared that because I've also seen people looking for like the holy grail of, oh, I'll find this mentor and they'll do everything. And it's not really how the world works. And I'm similar. I go to certain people on public speaking. I go to certain people when I'm thinking about entrepreneurial opportunities. I go to different, like, it's not all in the same person either, because that's what makes the world go round. We're all adding value, hopefully. And I think that's so important when someone's seeking out that type of, I love that. I think I really love the word coaching even more because
Yeah.
mentoring makes it sound so formalized that it almost makes you look for a formal figure in a way. But yeah,
I agree. I think everybody needs a coach because everybody could use, you know, help on a skill or developing a new skill. Like, you know, you saw me, like we met and I was doing,
yeah,
that was my first public speaking thing that I've
yeah.
done. Normally it's just like this where it's conversing, but I've never actually like thought about a speech and record it. And I was super nervous. And leading up to that, I was looking at two different resources. Have you ever heard of the Moth before?
The moth? No.
Moth. So it is and I researched and found this. It is a storytelling competition.
Ah,
So what it is individuals get up and they have, I think, 5 minutes to tell a story, and it's judged based on who can tell the best story. If you look at some of these and you can YouTube them, they are amazing storytellers. The most some of them are funny, some of them are sad, but like what I learned, and then I went down that rabbit hole, and one of the champion of this wrote a book on storytelling. I wrote that book on like how do you tell a great story and what's your storytelling process. So like there are skills and things you can learn about that are going to help you in no matter what I do. I translate that to sales, but if you're a candidate thinking about how do I tell my story, storytelling. The Moth, stand-up comics, I've read some books on like how do you deliver and how do you
yes.
tell a story that's captivating to an audience. There's some great resources from stand-up comics that have a process that you can learn from. So coaching doesn't have to be formal where you pay for it. You can just learn and acquire that skill, and you can think creatively. Like,
That's right.
you know, we talk about you don't have to read a public speaking book. I just talked about how I learned about the Moth, a storytelling
Yeah,
competition, and stand-up comics to learn how to deliver a business presentation.
absolutely. And I'm glad you wove in the storytelling because that's also which helps you with your narrative, right? And thinking differently. So I'm so glad you introduced that. Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, I could talk to you for hours on this stuff. It's like we're both so like passionate about it, but I think no, I know your knowledge and your insights is so valuable for this conversation and podcast. But I want to also give you a chance to say, is there anything that I didn't ask or we didn't talk about that you want to share with the listeners today as we think about wrapping this up here in a few minutes?
Yeah, and I think for the audience here and just knowing the temperature of the market, there's a lot of candidates out there that are looking for jobs, whether you're fresh into the job market or you've been a part of a layoff or you're just looking for your next opportunity. And I know it's easier said than done, and I really just want to empower these individuals and realize like if you aren't getting traction, it's not you. It's not you're a bad candidate, you don't have the skills, you don't have that. It's not the right time and you're not the right fit. That's very different. It's not, and it's hard to not take rejection personally. I get it. I'm sitting here saying this and I understand it's easier said than done. If you apply for 1,000 jobs, you don't hear back. That is hard. And that is, but when you think about it logically, the job process is matching the right person at the right time with the right skills. Okay.
Yeah,
That doesn't mean that that can't be you. It's just not you right now. So don't think about this as a reflection on you as an individual or you as a professional. Just think it's not the right time. and know that keep looking, keep your story. Don't try to be anything different, because the right fit is there for you, and you'll find it and you'll thrive in that environment.
Amazing. That is so amazing. Great advice. And wow, I just want to, first of all, thank you so much for being a part of Coffee with Convery and sharing your insights and some really, really practical advice. Again, and congratulations with Spark Recruiting. I know you all are doing fantastic stuff, and yeah, I guess I wish you the best with that as well. So, but thank you so much for being a part of it.
Thanks for having me, and I love what you're doing, and thank you for doing what you're doing. I think it's great. It's getting the word out. It's connecting people, and I love it. I'm a fan. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. So, for the listeners, if you liked what you heard today, please share this podcast with your network on Spotify. Give us a rating, and you can also follow us at Coffee with Convery on Instagram. This has been Coffee with Convery, and until next time, please stay well.